me tell you.
Do a little Wu-Tang.
Man, welcome to the friendly confines of Rock Hill, man. Back in the home place.
Oh, yeah. It's been a minute.
I know, man. Episode 60?
60.
Going with,
Otto Graham.
man, Browns fans. Hey, it's been a long time since y'all were good.
Gonna piss off some people from Ohio. But,
Probably my neighbor.
It's been, 5-year stretch of championships?
Yeah, 10 years.
10 years. Good Lord.
Yeah. I don't even know if the NFL was in existence back then.
There was no
but
Super Bowl.
I think
the Packers
Paul Brown was like owner, coach of the Cleveland Browns.
Paul Brown Stadium.
Yeah. They won 7 titles. Golly. So anyway, Otto Graham, 45 to 50. One of the greats, Hall of Famer. If you're a Browns fan, you know who we're talking about. But, hey, guys, we're knocking off the rust on episode 60, okay?
Yeah. It's kind of hard once we start. We're going to have to change away from athletes, I think, as we start getting up in these numbers.
Yeah.
A little bit tough.
Well, thanks to Comer Distributing again for sponsoring this episode.
Yep.
Tell them what we're drinking.
Sweetwater Brewing Highlight Easy IPA.
Yeah, lime green can, little river down at the bottom. Good little artwork. But
Yep.
I'm typically not a big IPA guy, but this is sort of light, refreshing, a little hoppy on the back end, but nothing too strong.
Yeah.
Folks, try it out. You'll
It's
enjoy
like
it.
if you're trying to get off of IPA. You still got the taste, but you don't feel like you're full.
You're trying to go back to the old favorite Bud Light. You know?
No, not at all.
But anyway, folks, last time we talked, we were down in Columbia. Sine Die Eve, that Wednesday evening, we had a lot of, that was a guest-filled episode.
Yes.
Led by Speaker Merle Smith.
In and out.
Yep. Candace Carroll of,
AFE.
yep. And we also had the brewmaster from the Bev Lab over there.
Yes.
And Chair Lady Erickson from Education joined us, talked about all the work they did this past session. Man, where do you want to start?
Oh.
So we did Sine Die, and then we both
Took off.
took a trip the following Monday.
On Sine Die, as soon as we wrapped up, we did the Bourbon in the Backroom podcast. We jumped on at the end very quickly. So that was
fun.
pretty cool.
It's always good to be on someone else's podcast.
Yeah.
You know? And you know, being freshmen last term, we did our Sine Die episode unbeknownst to us. Bourbon in the Backroom had a long-standing tradition prior to us getting into the State House of them hosting a live Sine Die. So we have now tried to get a little wiser, and that's why we've adjusted our schedule to where we try to do a little Sine Die Eve. And I kind of enjoyed that because we weren't for certain
What was going to happen.
what we were going to get accomplished on Thursday. And I think that's even going to be a little more interesting next year as we go into the second year of the 2-year session, because that's when
Everything lives or
everybody
dies.
starts cramming, you know?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, because if it doesn't get done then it has to start the entire process.
yeah, it's a big reset button.
This year, if it doesn't get done, then
still pick it back
you know
up.
the Senate can pick it back up at the beginning of the year. The House can pick it back up
And
at
the
the beginning of the
membership's
year.
the same.
Yes.
You know, so folks are familiar. They're on the same committees and that sort of thing. After that second year, you might be dealing with a bunch of new faces, sort of reshuffle the deck as far as committee assignments and all those things. So,
Yeah.
and you know, timing's huge. As you know, with Gavin's Law, I mean, we hit while the iron was hot.
Yes.
And so timing's everything. And sometimes these priorities shift as elections occur. So,
Very true.
Next year is going to be interesting on that Sine Die Eve episode. But yeah, we're back here in Rock Hill. It's a little bit settled down. So as we talked about, the session ended that Sine Die Thursday. We literally had a weekend, and then Monday we were both off to
DC.
Yep. So you were up there. You were invited by the White House.
Yes. So we went up there for the signing of the Take It Down Act.
Yep.
First time going into the White House, which was super cool. Waiting to get in while I'm sitting in line, I happened to look down, and I seen our AG's head down the line. I was like, oh, that's General Wilson. Let me walk down there. I start walking down. Well, as I'm walking down, I run into a couple of parents, survivor parents that I've advocated with in line, and standing right there too is Jeff Gottfried from Cyberdive.
Oh, wow.
He was coming there to surprise me. He wasn't going to text me. I don't know how he got into the White House, but
okay.
he's standing there too. But I was able to bring Melissa and both the boys.
Yeah. That was a cool picture. That was a really cool picture because Cohen and Callie got sort of the end.
Yes.
So whatever the journalist was who was taking that side profile as President Trump is signing it there in the background, that's definitely one you're going to put on your office wall.
Yeah.
You know?
And the clip while we're sitting up front with two of the teenage girls that were advocating as well. And, President Trump brought up Gavin and the story and said that he had read about it. Mm-hmm. And then we go up there for the signing. Of course, as we're walking up, we're more focused on where the boys are going to stand at.
Right.
We're getting them organized, and senators are shuffling in.
Boxing the kids out.
Well, not the kids, but boxing us out, which I don't care. They fought hard for it.
Yeah.
So
that
me and
reminds
Melissa
me
kind
of
of stood
the
behind
George
it.
Costanza Seinfeld episode when there's a fire in the apartment and George Costanza's like pushing the kids down to get out the door first. Thank you, senators.
No.
Kidding. But yeah, so tell the two listeners about this Take It Down Act. This was a idea that sort of is in your lane. You know, it falls into that online safety stuff. So talk about that, and then talk about who sort of led that charge.
Well, Take It Down Act, first time I was introduced to it was Senator Cruz, Senator Klobuchar. I came in the end of last year before they started the new session and was advocating to get it passed. Senator Cruz got up and spoke about Take It Down Act on the Senate floor, and he shared Gavin's story at that time. And did a lot of press for it, trying to get it across the line. Unfortunately, it died. Well, it started back up this year, and as soon as we came in January, Melania Trump's office reached out and had us in D.C. and wanted to make this her number one priority.
Nice.
And so it passed the Senate very quickly at the beginning of session.
Okay.
And then it went over to the House, and so Melania's advocating was to really get the House moving on this. Even at it wasn't State of the State, but I forget what they called it because it was the first year.
Right.
That's the reason I was up there for the inauguration as well, was advocating for that. Melania had one of the teenage girls there that she was pointing out how important it was. But the Take It Down Act, what it does is it criminalizes you posting unconsensual provocative images or videos on a website without someone's permission, regardless whether they're AI, so a morphed image, or a real image.
And let me just pause while I got the question. So morphed image, what you're saying is they take, say, a picture of you and sort of superimpose it onto. They use your likeness.
Yeah, they could use my likeness, using my face
To do something that's
right.
explicit or whatever. Obviously, it's not real. Well, not obviously. It appears to be real.
It appears to be real, but it is not. But even if it was real,
right?
if you don't have my permission to post it,
yes,
then now you can be found guilty of up to 2 years in prison if it's an adult, up to 3 years if it's a minor, and the digital companies only have 48 hours to remove them.
Okay.
So they have to have a way for you to submit, this needs to be removed. And once you submit it, they have 48 hours. And if they don't remove it within 48 hours, then the FTC starts incurring fines to
the
platform.
Okay. And this is something that if again, a hypothetical, your image or likeness gets posted in a video or a picture, the responsibility is still on you to report it, right? Like, does it have to be reported?
Yes, you have to report it. That's within the 48 hours.
So let's say this hypothetical, your likeness video gets posted on Twitter. Mm-hmm. Twitter gets notified by you or someone that says, hey, I represent Brandon Guffey. This is not him. Take it down. They then have 48 hours.
Correct.
Okay. Criminal offenses to the person who posted it, some fines for the platform if they do not
refuse to remove it.
Okay.
And that was, one of the great things was the CEO of X was there.
Okay.
And recognized as well for being there in support. Even the social media companies seemed to support it But the major reason things like this were needed, it wasn't just the Taylor Swift scenario.
Right.
But that's what people recognize it as. But there are many instances of people getting pornographic videos uploaded on these websites and never getting them taken down.
Oh, wow.
And trying to get them down, and someone else just uploads them, and they just continue to stay up. So this allows people that if images are leaked without your permission, or if there's augmented, we're in politics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they could.
Someone wants to create like a fake hotel room tape with Heath Sessions and say that it's him. Well, now they can be criminally charged.
Okay, good deal. So, yeah, so while you...
Or even if it was a real one, they can be charged.
So you went up there at the invitation of the White House. We had planned, and again, this was probably, I wouldn't say poor planning because the timing was excellent, but we sort of thought that we'd still be in session because we got out early this year.
Yeah.
So with the work that we're doing with that PBM ad hoc committee, myself and Representative Cox and Lawson, along with one staff, went up to D.C. and met with some of our congressional leaders from South Carolina, also Senator Graham, and just wanted to talk about how is Congress and our Senate on a federal level combating this? How are we dealing with these issues of rising healthcare costs, rising drug prices, and those types of things? Because a lot of what we heard on the state level in testimony on the PBM committee down when we were in Columbia was, y'all shouldn't even really be dealing with this. This is a federal issue.
Yeah.
Right? This is a federal, whether it's anti-competitive commerce issue, whether it's a monopoly issue, whether it's unfair trade practices, whatever. We were told by a lot of folks who were on sort of maybe the health plan or even the PBM side, this is a federal issue. Well, so trust but verify, right? So that was a great visit. I went up there thinking we were just going to be meeting with some of their healthcare policy experts, the staff, and kudos
they actually took the time to meet with you.
Yeah, kudos to Congressman Russell Fry, Congress Lady Nancy Mace,
Congressman Ralph Norman,
our very own Congressman Ralph Norman, and also Senator Graham.
Yeah,
I was surprised when he walked in the room. I was like, "Word," but and all very nice, approachable.
I was like, "Word."
I mean, I'll tell you, man. Congressman Fry and his staff, man, probably gave us like a little over an hour.
Yeah. Russell
Mace,
Fry is awesome. Every time I've been down there,
yeah,
like with the hospitality and stuff. Congresswoman Mace always, same way.
Russell Fry is a whip now in D.C., and so he said it just so happened that Monday it was a late meeting, and so usually for folks who don't know, which I didn't know until I experienced it myself, Monday is the travel day for Congress. So when they get up there, they literally go in and they have like a couple of committees, like Rules Committee and those types of things, Monday at 4 and 5 o'clock. And so we had our meeting with Congressman Fry in some of his office, I think at 4 o'clock. We were probably winding up around 5:15, and he said, "Hey, I got whips. Y'all want to come?" And we're like, "What?" And so, yeah, we went down, and for folks, if you don't know, WHIPS is sort of leadership. It's folks who help organize policy efforts. They find out how members are thinking on a certain bill, how they think they're going to be voting on a bill, and those types of things. And so, walked right in, special guest Russell Fry. One thing I will say, so I'm a whip for the State House, for the Republican caucus, and I have some whip meeting envy for sure because they do it right.
I haven't ever been to a whip meeting in the State House level or the federal level yet.
Yeah, I've got some. I
got whip envy.
I might be throwing in some comment box for our caucus to consider. This fall when we go to our caucus retreat.
Yeah.
So we try to get some policy things together. I might try to pull some folks aside. Is there any way we can get some wings? But so folks up there, yeah, it's sort of like the meal for those members. and it's like good food, and
Dinner and chatting
yeah,
about what's going on.
yep. They talk about.
I mean, they've got a whip. What's it, almost 500 people.
Correct. Yeah,
That's got to be tough.
so their whips is almost like our caucus meeting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, it's
They've got to have 60, 70 people
yeah,
easily.
it's sort of like a sort of decent size hotel sort of conference meeting room, ballroom, whatever. But I mean, I'd say at least 40, 50 folks sitting around tables. And man, they're pretty organized. They talk about this. And again, the timing of this meeting was great because reconciliation, the big, beautiful bill, was, set for order. And man, that was a big deal. So we actually got to see the relationships and how.
I wonder who
everybody works
Thomas
together.
Massey's whip is.
I don't know.
That'd be like the worst job. You're the one whip that you got the guys going to say no.
Look, I know you're leaning towards no right now, but hear me out.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it was a good experience. That was our Monday. We went to dinner with Congressman Fry that Monday night, and then Tuesday back-to-back meetings with Senator Graham and Norman and Congress Lady Mace. Man, again, the timing of our visit was awesome because the previous week when we were finishing up our session, Trump rolled out that executive order basically saying, look, Big Pharma, if you can't get your drug prices down, you're way overcharging American consumers in the healthcare system. Whereas in the same drug in other countries, like even civilized countries, like the UK and France and whatever, we're paying, say, $1,200-1,300 for Ozempic a month. Patients over there in, say, the UK, they're paying, I don't know, $100. And Trump's like, nah, we ain't doing that no more. And basically, and we heard this in our PBM ad hoc testimony, is that the R&D burden, so the research and development of trying to get new drugs to market, a lot of times is bore on American patients and consumers, right? Because they know the money's here, right? So they don't mind overburdening our
system. I think Dubai's
system.
pretty rich.
Correct. So, Trump's executive order was the prior week. So it just, it was on the top of mind of a lot of members of Congress. So,
well, the first time I'd ever heard the term PBM, I think you were talking about, and this was probably early January of 24, and we were on the porch, and you were talking about PBMs, and I was just learning. Like, you had mentioned it, brought it up, and I'm like, okay, explain to me what PBMs is.
Yeah.
And then I went down, that was whenever Zuckerberg and them came in to D.C., so I had to go to D.C. whenever they came.
Oh, yeah.
And that night, I think, was the night that y'all ended up having the drive-by near the condo.
Yes. Yep. You called it in.
Yeah. And whenever I called, I was calling because I was walking down the street in D.C., and there was a billboard. But for some reason, every time I tried to take a picture of it, it's digital. It put like a big black wide line in the middle of it. But it was about PBMs.
Oh,
so
wow.
I was calling about that, and then y'all started talking to me about the drive-by
Yep.
that happened.
Man, memorable night. Luckily, no one was hurt.
Yeah.
Man, the pictures, the Puma suit.
Yeah. Well, I thought the whole... I thought that you guys being down there, like, it to me, it goes back to whenever we were trying to get Gavin's Law passed, and we're sitting there trying to figure out, we come up with this game plan, then all of a sudden everything changes, and I'm like, look at Heath, and I'm like, what'd you do?
Yeah.
And he's just like, it's a God thing.
Yeah, and again,
That's the way it felt with this. Like, you were the guys that was always with me.
Yeah.
And then to know, as soon as I got out of the White House, I'm going to be able to meet up with you guys
Yeah,
and
that's right.
celebrate.
I know. And with your family
And
too.
have our porch caucus at the hotel that we were staying at.
Yeah, it was a great trip, great experience. Obviously, two different goals and reasons why we went, but yeah, all ended up rendezvousing in D.C. and had a good experience. I tell you, one thing I will say about D.C. is, man, there is a lot of great staff up there, and a lot of them are really young.
They're the ones who pretty much run things.
I mean, it's like
Right?
it's like when I say kids, I'm not saying that disrespectfully because I'm pushing 40
They're
here.
fresh out of college.
But they're fresh out of college. They get probably an entry level type of position in an office, and then they start taking on some more policy issues as they get some experience. But yeah, man, I was impressed. That's one thing about DC that.
And congressional members get what, $2 million a year for staff?
I can't. Don't quote me. I'm not sure.
Sorry.
They get more than we do.
Well, we don't get anything.
Yeah, they get more than we do.
In York County, we get nothing for
Yeah.
staff.
Now, again, Senator Matt Lieber is going to try to get us bigger budgets, I'm sure, in the future.
We'll hit on that one later because that was the most recent thing.
Get that damn boat out of the water, would you? And so anyway, but yeah, just young people in positions that have responsibility, that have some, meaning to it. And that's just a great experience for young folks. I was like, man, you know what? This would be fun if I got Emma. Like if Emma goes down the road of enjoying politics and law and whatever, that'd be a great experience to go up there and just.
Well, and they become the industry subject experts. Mm-hmm. So you take like Trey Wapple.
Yeah.
He has the experience and he is the industry expert. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, I think he was an attorney and everything else, but he's been doing this for so long, even though he's young, that he becomes the expert on it.
Yeah.
And we're focused on 20 different things, and we have to lean on these people that are focused solely on these individual issues.
Yeah. And again, when we say experts, again, you and I have enough life experience and business experience outside of politics to understand there is experts of folks who can tell you what's in a manual or a book, right? But that's why the Congress folks bring some of that life experience and wisdom with them. And so it's just a good mix. The youth bring some of the energy, which
they're the ones you're like, well, what does this law say?
Yeah, correct.
And then they go and dig it and they do all the footwork and they're like, this is this, but this precedent was set at this time.
Right.
And this is why.
Yep. So, but yeah, altogether, great trip.
They're the original Google.
It was a whirlwind, I think, for you and us because we were both leaving at rush hour on Tuesday. Man.
The traffic going back.
Bro, talk about infrastructure.
Y'all must have took a car or something and went through the express lane.
No, we didn't.
For some reason, y'all ended up ahead of us.
Our taxi didn't have the
express
medallion
pass?
or the token to get in that express lane.
Yeah.
But he was driving about 60 miles an hour in the fast lane on the interstate because he did ask us. He goes, "Are y'all in a hurry?" And folks, I'll give you a little insight on Representative Cox. He is a former EOD. He's a veteran. So his training and his background has made him just a very cautious person, right? If you're looking for landmines in Iraq or Afghanistan, guess what? You proceed with caution. So Representative Cox brings that to a lot of things that he does now. One of them is driving. And so when that Uber driver says, "Hey, y'all in a hurry?" I'm like, we want to get there. And he goes, No. Safe. Very safe. And the you could tell the driver's first language was not English.
Cox is like, I've been to a dozen countries. I'll be damned if I'm dying in a taxi in DC.
Right. And so the driver's like, "No Rapido? No Rapido?" And I go, "Come on. Yes, Rapido." And he's like, No Rapido. Safe. So the driver understood that to go posted speed limit of 55 or 60, whatever it was, but he stayed in the fast lane. And so folks,
he was what was causing the traffic jam that I was in.
I'll give you a little insight on Heath Sessions. Look, it's called a passing lane for a reason. If you ain't passing, get over. Hot damn. That drives me crazy. That's like, and it's a law now, right? In South Carolina, if you're not passing, you could be pulled over. I have never seen anybody get pulled over because I'd be doing citizen's arrest all day long, man. But woo!
It's usually a black or white Altima that's in front of you,
man,
slowing down the traffic.
This guy was 55, 60 miles an hour, just 10 and 2 in it the whole way. And I swear, there were so many people just, just zipping around us. And I go, "Hey, Cox, this is your safe." He's about to cause like a 10-car pileup. But yeah, it was a little that rush hour was challenging for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, altogether it was a good trip in DC and but happy to be back for sure.
Absolutely.
This episode of Pints of Politics is brought to you by Comer Distributing. Comer Distributing Company is a wholesale beer distributor located in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Founded in 1971, Comer is a family-owned business that distributes beer and other beverages to York, Chester, Fairfield, Lancaster, Kershaw, Lexington, and Richland counties.
All right. So Talking about money.
Yeah, the producer's just got to edit that out.
Yeah.
He can pick what 5 seconds he likes for that lead in.
Well,
But yeah, we want to talk about the budget, man.
yes.
So we brought up one of our artists we listened to back in the day. But yeah, let's talk about the budget. I know, there's been a lot of buzz about the Senate pay raise getting included in the budget, or as we like to call it, the Senator Lieber pay raise. But no, there's a lot of good things in this budget, right? No earmarks,
Yeah.
right?
That was the biggest thing to me. Like,
Yeah.
if we're going, do you ever remember a budget without earmarks? I mean, the one thing
No.
that I was asked whenever John Warren's group was asking if they were going to support me or not,
Yeah.
would you vote for a budget would you vote for a budget that has earmarks?
Right. I'm for some community reinvestment earmarks, whatever you want to call them, where us as reps, or even say Clymer or Johnson or somebody, folks who represent their districts in York County for us, if the county needs help with, roads and bridges are getting a lot of love right now, right? But the rising costs, folks, to get a interstate exit ramp built probably takes you about 10 to 15 years, it seems like. And by the time you get all your funds available and then you start getting your design and your engineering done.
Inflation's hit.
Yeah, and especially the last 5 years here in our country, we had massive inflation and a lot of costs increases, and especially when it comes to essential sort of commodity, the things that it takes to build roads and bridges, right?
Yeah.
So
A lot of fuel, so as fuel costs went up,
Yep.
costs significantly went
yeah,
up.
so a lot of stuff here in York County. We have 3 exits that got some state infrastructure bank loan commitments, along with some local matching going on. But this occurred 8 years ago, prior to 2020, and so those exits that say might have cost $80 million now cost $125 million, right? And so you got cost overruns that could be anywhere from $25 to $50 million per exit ramp. And we got Cherry Road here.
Falling in.
It's fallen in. And it's only 20 years old. So we've got to build these things correctly, the right way, and best design. Sometimes you got to spend a little more money. I would rather spend $40 million more on an exit if instead of they only having a lifespan of 20 years, I get 50 years. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of those things going on, and yeah, so roads and bridges
There's an extra couple $100 million more dollars towards roads and bridges.
Yeah, we set out a goal of $1 billion in
Yeah.
infrastructure spending over the next, I think what we said, 5 to 10 years, and we're actually ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
But that has a lot to do with folks coming to South Carolina, businesses coming to South Carolina. We're getting a lot more. What are we? One of the fastest growing?
We
Top
are
3?
the fastest growing.
Okay, per capita. And so, man, what you don't want to do is you get all these folks here and you don't have the roads.
Because then the complaining becomes, why weren't you proactive?
Right. And
But whenever you're trying to be proactive, it's like, why are you spending money on this?
yeah, so roads, schools.
And the biggest thing during this debate, what shocked me was South Carolina SCDOT handles 77%
yeah.
of all the roads.
So that's another thing.
That's huge. That is a major portion
right.
of our budget.
And what are we, number 4 per capita as far as
Number
miles
3.
of 3?
Yeah.
Miles of road per resident. And that's something that doesn't get talked about a lot either. We have we know of a podcaster down in the Low Country, and he threw out a post something about how, and again, this was something that got picked up of we're wasting money. We spend all this money and we're like such a small state. And so I text him, just trying to be courteous and respectful, like, hey man, check your stats, because you're comparing us to Florida. While Florida is a bigger state, they also don't have percentage-wise.
State's not responsible for it.
Right. Those are a lot of local, municipal, and county responsible roads versus in South Carolina, the vast majority.
Which those local, county, and municipal taxes
Yeah.
are a hell of a lot higher in Florida.
Right. And so again, folks, if if we could explain all this in a bumper sticker, we would. But a lot of times it takes a little more time.
We don't have that Freedom Caucus twist.
So yeah, we had a what I thought was a great budget. It went to the conference committee. Again, for the two listeners probably who,
let's talk about the other things that were in the conference
that might not be paying attention. What we also came to realize was our Board of Economic Advisors, which gives us tax revenue estimates, actually was very conservative. And when it came to finalizing the budget, after we had passed our second round of the budget out and sent it to conference, there was another $330+ million of recurring money that came into the state.
Will get rolled over.
Yep, and another $670 million of one-time money that came in. So close to $1 billion that was a surplus, right? So,
which you want to be short. I don't know that you want to be $1 billion short.
Right. Yeah. You want to be conservative
estimate.
with your estimate because then you spend less, right?
Yeah. But it's very hard to estimate whenever you're the fastest growing.
Right. And
do those numbers end up working out?
Yeah. And a lot of times that one-time money will get set aside even for next year. And then we take advantage of that one-time money and pay down roads, right? Or we accelerate schedules for roads and bridges or air traffic control, whatever the priority would be. Here in our state, definitely vital infrastructure is got to be number one priority. You and I both got selected to be on the DOT ad hoc, which we had our first meeting on Wednesday
Excited
as well.
about that.
And we'll talk about that in the next segment after the budget. But yeah, so we prioritized vital infrastructure. We prioritized education. We prioritized
funded SROs in every school.
Some tax return. I mean, trying to
$1 billion in tax.
Yeah, it was like
returns. It's
close
like
to 300 in income tax.
And 814 in property tax relief.
And folks, that is prior to the tax reform House bill.
Right.
That is at another $400 million. But now that's not law yet. That got passed out of the House. It is waiting on the Senate. I'm hopeful that'll be taken up next year.
And that'll bring it from the 6% down to 5.39 immediately.
Yep. And then lower income gets the 199.
Yeah.
So again, a lot of good stuff in this budget. There was some healthcare stuff in there that I liked.
Got disaster relief, especially with these.
Yep. So we had to backfill our emergency disaster relief funds. A lot of these local counties who were dealing with a lot of this debris cleanup, they don't have that kind of funds, right? I mean, especially, come on, man, Aiken County.
Well, think about
they're not preparing for a hurricane.
What happened whenever the hailstorm hit here?
Right. And so there was a lot of money spent by counties over in the west, a part of our state, and the state came in and backfilled to help offset some of those costs to get those counties and those localities, those municipalities back up and running and solvent again. So all good things with this budget. Again, when we talk about these earmarks or these community investments that we try to bring back to our districts, we talked about this in an earlier episode. My concern is transparency. Right?
I think earmarks are the way to go because you're putting your name behind what you're requesting. So therefore, you are held responsible for it.
Yep.
And it's not as if we're talking less than 2% of the budget is considered earmarks.
Yep.
But within those, everyone, you see exactly what it is. Because the problem that we run into, if you're not on Ways and Means and you're not somebody in there, the old way of doing things was, you throw it in this fund, you throw it in this fund.
Yeah, you throw it in this agency.
And that's where... therefore, you have to be one of the powerful members of Ways and Means or Senate Finance
you've had
in order to get what you want instead of being able to fight for your constituents in a need that they may have locally.
Yeah, and there's a story of legend that I hear when Mark Sanford was governor, and I think Mark Sanford would veto. No, I'm not talking about hiking in Appalachia.
I thought you were talking about the pigs.
No.
He carried two pigs onto the floor.
Yeah, that's right. No, but Mark Sanford was, very diligent in trying to find pet projects and earmarks because he had told the General Assembly, we ain't doing earmarks in a budget. And so I have heard stories of members trying to hide some of their in-district earmarks into whatever. And there's a famous story about a fire truck. And this member got the money in the budget. The fire truck got purchased by his local whatever. And then he made a calendar and put this shiny new fire truck, in the month of June or July or whatever. Again, just some of the gamesmanship that goes on. But I hear this from like the 80s and 90s and stuff, and I'm like, man.
Well, and that's the point of the earmarks.
Correct.
The earmarks are actually advocated by conservatives.
Yeah.
So you could see what's in there.
Yeah.
Now the narrative is, earmarks are just, that's
evil,
where the
bad.
Swamp is.
That's where all the wasteful spending is.
Yeah.
And again.
And like I said, we had $250 million just in requests of fire trucks to help out local fire districts.
And so that's the thing. That is my concern. And again, I'm not indicting current members. I'm not saying or making accusations here. That is my concern, is that folks like you and I who are relatively new to the State House are left out because there are no earmarks. And when I say you and I, I'm talking about our communities and districts, folks. And I'll speak to my earmarks in my freshman term. A lot of my stuff that I went in and asked for and actually got into the budget was the sewer line that connects Chester up to Rock Hill.
And mine was the water line for Blue Granite.
Yeah. Protective vests for some of our first responders.
Yep. Body cams for law enforcement.
Yeah. I mean, so again, is it wasteful spending? That's debatable.
Yeah.
Right? Now, there are some earmarks by members that I would say I would want to debate, is that reasonable or is that wasteful spending, right? But the great thing about the way we did it the past 2 years prior to this year was we all get that earmark document, what they call an appropriations document, and it had every single project, the value that was in the budget, and the member or members who asked for it and got it in the budget.
So you could see exactly who asked for it, and if you had a question on it, you could go up and ask.
Yeah.
Which is why they started saying we were funding kids' bicycles or something.
Yeah.
And the Freedom Caucus narrative was that we were funding kids' bicycles whenever they seen the BMX World Finals being hosted in Rock Hill. Because we requested, what was it, 400,000?
500,000.
500,000 just to support that. Right. Which brings in, $6-7 million in tax revenue.
It's a huge economic development.
But not only that, I mean, the budget also, we have, regardless of whether people like it or not, for some of these bills that we can't get passed, we have provisos that affect the funding, such as keeping men out of women's restrooms and locker rooms.
Yep.
That's not a law, that is a proviso, and if schools break it, then they lose funding.
Yeah, man, we got to get that in the legislation. I don't know where.
I don't know where it is, but
the
problem is once you put it as a proviso, there isn't a rush to get the legislation passed. Even though it's important and it's the same thing, it should just be an easy layup, take the win, and move on, remove it from the budget. But that's not the way things work.
Yep. So all those things, we raised teacher pay. Minimum pay is $48.5 here in the state. Now, that's just state minimum. That's not saying that, like currently in Rock Hill, our school board went above that, right?
Yeah.
We're just stating
they were at 50 to begin with. Minimum.
We're setting the minimum.
Now don't get confused to say that we're giving teacher raises.
No. But
everyone.
What I also did like was, because I go to church with a lot of educators, and they have some of these folks have 15, 20 years being a teacher, and they're like, hey, because they started so far back, they started at 30, right?
Yeah.
And they're just now getting to that pay band of 55, 60, let's say. And they're like, hey, can you do something for – and that's what I did like about this budget was we went in and stepped up those pay lanes, those pay bands.
Stepped up some of them, but that doesn't mean that we funded all of them.
No. And also what that does is that keeps up with cost of living and inflation that we were talking about earlier, right?
Well, the narrative that drove me crazy with this budget was that record-setting budget, which every year the budget's going to go up. Correct. And especially if population is going up, it is a balanced budget, first of all.
Well,
but the other problem is if we go back and we look at 1999 to 2000, this was state full-time employees. So 99, 2000 was Sanford governor there? No, that was about 08 or so, right?
No, that was Hodges.
Okay.
It was Beasley,
so
Hodges,
it was 1.5% state full-time employees as a percentage of state population.
1.5?
1.05, right? Then, as we've come in, now even last year, or let's go to the year before we were in office, it's been pretty flat, which y'all can't see the graph, but it's been very flat since 17, 18, going all the way up to 22, 23. This year, we dipped down to 0.65%. So that graph
state employees to state population.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that is cutting government.
Correct.
But sometimes that requires also inflation for increasing pay.
Yeah, correct.
So our pay may be going up, but it's not as if we're growing government as everyone says.
Again, this is what we talked about. Is growing government paying for the same interstate that just saw increases over the last 7 years of 25 to 50 million? Is that growing government? No. That's building a dam. It's the same exit, but the cost of materials have gone up. And again, this is an easy way for our two listeners to understand it. Look, if you're married, you got a household budget when it's you and your wife, fresh out of college, fresh out of high school, whatever, right? You're in your 800 square foot apartment, 1,200 2-bedroom place. Your household budget is X. You have a kid, which is just one more person. You think your household budget's the same? Now, as our buddy Travis Moore, you got 8 kids, right? If you got 8 kids, you think you're going to have the same household budget? No, not at all. And it's very similar as our state population increases. So, reflexively will our state budget.
Yeah.
Because state revenues will be coming in to then help invest in that growth.
Ultimately, what you need to look at is, are we asking you to pay more or pay less?
Yeah.
That's what it boils down.
Yeah.
Boils down to. And because our job is to protect the taxpayer and provide the services.
Right. Yep. So I think what got a lot of buzz and a lot of people talking was, I know up around here was, hey, you and I disagreed on a budget vote, right? Because there's a lot of times, I mean, you and I may disagree to varying levels, but it won't change our vote, right?
Right. Well, we've disagreed on many things, and we have voted opposite, just as the first public one.
Right.
Right.
Well, and because that was the frustrating part for me was for folks who haven't been around state government or haven't been paying attention this week because school's out, summer, who cares, right? But
school's out.
We the conferees voted for the Senate pay raise, which, as far as impact to the budget, was a little over $3 million, and
which we voted down in the House.
Yep, and then the Senate insisted upon it, and that's why I'm calling it the Senate pay raise. But they insisted on it, said basically we're not going to have a budget unless we put that in. And I was a little shocked that our very own delegation member, chairman of Senate Finance, Harvey Peeler, voted against this amendment to the Senate budget a couple weeks ago.
But as a conferee,
he said, hey, look, we're going to honor the wishes of the body of the Senate.
Wouldn't you think that that's being part of being a leader? Like, let's use the example, like, let's say you're Speaker of the House. Mm-hmm. Well, you adamantly disagree with something. You get to voice your vote, right? You were elected by the entire body, but your vote was on the failing side. Do you believe that you as one man should have the power to override what your body told you to do?
Yeah, and I think that was my question for some of our conferees, right?
Yeah.
Was we demonstrated twice, not once, twice, that we did not want the pay raise in, right? John King attempted an amendment in the first round of our budget back in March. We voted it down. And we vote that down every year, actually.
Yeah.
For everyone who does not know, John King has been fighting and advocating for this every budget week.
And we both agree that a pay raise is needed.
Correct. And so, again, the House in version 1 of the budget says, no, we're not giving us a pay raise. For folks who don't know, the Constitution actually states that we cannot give ourselves a pay raise in the middle of a term, right?
Now, granted.
Hold on.
Okay.
And so, and you and I agree on that. It would have been better, right? I would have probably been for the budget, even though I didn't like how this thing seemed to just got dropped on us. I would have been probably a yes vote if we had have made that effective date the next term.
We can't do that.
The next
because we're assigning money.
Well, no, because it's a proviso.
Yeah.
Right, correct. And so anyway, this has been attempted before, mostly by Democrats, and I'm not impugning anybody. That's just how it comes about.
Why are you pointing at me?
So, House version 1, there's no pay raise. Senate gets it, they put a pay raise on it. We scrap that.
We pulled it out
in version
in our
2.
second version.
Yep, and then sent it to conference. So, the House, the body of the House, voted twice that we did not want a pay raise in there. And so that was my question to some of our folks was, guys, why is it that the conferees on the Senate said they changed their vote to support it,
their body,
to honor the wishes of their body, but we didn't do that? And they said, well, we did try to, get a updated whip count, right?
But essentially, Ways and Means pulled it out before it could get to the floor the second time.
Yeah.
So we can take credit on that, but Ways and Means pulled it out before it even got to us.
Right.
Based on that first
and that's, and again, I didn't vote for the budget because of how this pay raise got put in there. What I would consider at the last minute for me. Now, others may have known well before. I did not. But I will also give credit where credit's due is Speaker called both of us.
Yeah.
And he said, hey, sort of enlightened me to the sort of negotiations going on amongst House conferees and Senate conferees. And I said, Mr. Speaker, look, I am just a hard no on that pay raise. And if we put that in there, then I'm a no on the budget, right? And, during our, caucus meeting, we all said our pieces. And this is what I likened it to. Imagine going and getting, you're going to go get your favorite steak at your favorite steakhouse.
Yeah.
Just picture it. You go there, you
Perfect.
order that steak, you get a nice glass of red wine. That steak comes out, you're about to slice into it.
For you straight guys, you get a nice cold beer.
And, there's hair on it. There's a big, long hair just draped right over the top. Now,
I just said, blew out.
right. And so, again, do you cut into that middle, make sure it's mid-rare, and just go at it? Or do you send it back, get a new steak? And that's what I was challenging our members to consider. Guys, There is a hair on the steak, man. It's cooked nice.
As Senator Clymer said, there's a wart on it.
Right. And so, and again, I knew the budget was going to pass. I knew, I wasn't like going hard in the paint on this. I wasn't taking it personally. I was just like, guys, we have the opportunity to send the message that we're not going to be dictated to by a few senators.
And for those that say that your vote, like you have to vote a certain way, you're a whip.
Yes, correct.
You didn't change your vote. Like,
not at all.
This is the false narrative. Like, oh, you got to do this. You got to fall in line.
Yeah, correct. I wanted us to vote down the budget. The governor would then we would have to operate on a continuing resolution. The governor would call us back, and the conferees would have to go back to work and get the pay raise out. And again, that's a steep climb, right? Especially this time of year, this late into
not just that. I mean, the conversations that I heard that were had with leadership within the Senate was we will not take it out.
Yeah. Well,
We will just continue. We won't go into how the federal government does. We will
Continuing
just
resolution.
operate on continuing resolutions,
Yeah.
and there will not be a budget.
Yep. And for that, I would have said, absolutely, let's do that. Because I would have spent all summer, letting the state know what they wanted to hold up a budget for. Now, let's get back to the merit and the essence of, do we deserve a pay raise, right? Because that is something that I tend to agree with.
Well-
I think there is merit to the argument that, guys, the last time we got a pay raise was what, 1992?
1990, yeah.
Folks, we get paid $10,400 for about 5.5 months worth of work. And you and I both can attest to it's more than that.
Yeah,
Right.
but in all fairness, because the way that you saw the budget and the way that I saw the budget, and I completely understood your argument. I mean, I was wavering.
And so to be frank,
Yeah.
I totally understood the merit of the way you thought of the budget.
Yeah.
I was like, guys, all I
You just have to make the best decision that
Yeah.
you can feel comfortable with.
and that's the great thing about you and I being friends and all that too. And
I
coming
mean, how
down-
many arguments not arguments or discussions did you, and Clymer all have?
Oh yeah.
And it was always like, I know from talking to Wes, it'd be like, well, you make a good point.
Correct.
He'd be like, well, you make a good point. And
Yeah.
I'm talking to you, and I'm like, well, you make a good point.
I literally remember you and I were talking on Wednesday
Yeah.
or Tuesday, and you're like, yeah,
I said, if Clymer goes against it, to
Yeah.
me, that should make my decision very easy, because how often do I go against Clymer and Sessions on a vote?
yeah,
Like that was easy. And honestly, whenever I was asked, like you said, whenever they called and asked around, like, hey, where you stand on this? My response to leadership was, look, Clymer votes against, and I'm a no.
yeah.
Like, no questions asked. That's where I'm going to be.
Disrespect, man. See, it ain't. I mean, if Sessions votes no, then I'm a no.
No, it was once it's 2 out of 3.
Oh yeah, because I already knew where I stood.
Yeah, we already knew where you were.
Yeah, and this is the thing. I do believe that we should look into how we are compensated, whether it's in district, and that's what I was about to tell the two listeners. Folks, we get $10,400 in a salary. That's taxed depending on, what sort of benefits and all that kind of stuff you take.
It's your income.
Yeah, that's your income. That's your ordinary income. We then get $1,000 a month of in-district money, which is supposed to reimburse us or compensate for all the
Your
things
home
that we're doing.
office, your
Just
you're running around to events.
constituent services, whatever.
Yeah.
That's what that's supposed to take into consideration.
Now,
then
what
we
you
also-
should do,
Hold on, and then we also get per diem. So when we travel and then we stay in a hotel, we get, I don't know, $239.
I always thought it was 125. Somebody told me it was 239. I don't know.
And that's
It's never been
mileage.
enough to affect my checking account.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of
I'm down there and I spend it.
that state government rate of $239. You could probably get a hotel for 180, 190
Yeah.
in Columbia. And then you got $40 a day for food, give or take. So that's a wash in my opinion. So ordinary income is 10.4. Then you got
And those are only
12,000.
session days.
Yep, and then you get 12,000 in district spend. So give or take, you get around 22.5 grand for this job.
Yeah.
All right, so
Sounds fair.
what this pay raise did was it took our in district from 1,000 a month to 2,500 a month. And so effectively that in district increase
$18,000.
was $18,000 a year.
It hasn't been adjusted since 78 or 90.
Yeah,
in the
correct.
district.
And so here is actually was part of my argument was, guys, I actually believe in the merits of looking at how we are paid, how we are compensated.
Just standard inflation,
Right.
Going from 1,000 up to I think it's 24 and some change based on the last time
Yeah.
that it was there.
And typically you do a sort of study committee where a group looks into all of the market factors, the time spent, travel expenses, and all those types of things. And then once you
We
get
should have spent another $5 million to decide if we wanted to do a $3 million.
so once you do correct. That's government, baby. So once this study committee gives its conclusions or recommendations, that then usually gets effectuated or manifests itself into a bill. And that bill goes through the committee process. We have talked about this a lot. We are about process. We don't like gotchas. We don't like surprises. And so if we did it the way that me and some others wanted it to go, was we would have voted the budget down, got the pay raise out, moved on. I think you had the idea of going ahead and pre-filing.
I've already got a bill written, but I was told, good luck, it's never going to move. And this is the problem. We've passed them out of the House before where we get beat up that we voted for a pay raise.
Right.
And it goes to the Senate, and there's always one senator, because one senator can kill a bill.
Yeah.
There's always one senator that wants that political capital to say, I stopped this from happening.
Right.
Which is why it hasn't increased in 35 years.
Right. And so, look, I genuinely feel that your time has value, right?
Yeah.
We spend a lot more time than $22,500 trying to work for our districts and our people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you would agree.
Yeah.
I could argue that this job, instead of paying, I think now with the in-district increase, it'll be right around 28.5 now with the in-district increase.
I don't know.
Instead of 22 or no.
No. It's going to go up 18.
Yeah, so
40, if you were at 22,
40.
so it's right at 40.
Yeah. One can
Now,
make
granted,
one can make an argument if you did it legitimate in the process of which I suggest in next year or next session, and then put the effective date after an election, you could actually be compensated more, right? Instead of 40, I think it's probably more around, I think the market's going to tell you it's probably going to be more around like 48, 50.
So my bill would simply cause a review every 5 years to adjust based on inflation.
Yeah.
So that way you'd never have to worry about it going up. Again, anyone making a vote unless they're truly increasing income.
So another idea, and again...
And just like every position, typically it's like 2 to 5% pay increase every year.
And that's what I liked about in talking with my desk mate this year, Paul Wickensheimer. He's a freshman member, but he served as clerk of court up in Greenville for a long, long time. He said that their local county council, I believe it was, their compensation is tied to county staff. And the percentage of increases, the average of what county staff gets every year, and that's what elected officials get.
So it incentivizes the council.
You're going to be damn fair.
Pay.
You know what I mean? Because you've got veteran county council staff who are working their butts off, and you're going to give them a 1.5% raise. Well, what's good for the goose? You know, but anyway, I love that was.
I still want to give my side of the story.
That's always a good idea, even when you're on the losing side of an argument. Man, a lot of those conversations started, and I started hearing some ideas that other localities are doing when it comes to how they compensate their elected officials. I was like, damn, that's a good idea. Damn, that's a good idea. Because I do feel that it is an undue burden on state legislators right now that, wait a minute, we got to step up and be responsible and bring up the apparent lag of state legislators have not seen an increase or a cost of living increase in 36 years or so. Yeah. Come on, man. No other job, whether it's public sector or private sector, could sustain itself on that model.
Well, so first of all, I don't look at it as a pay increase.
Yeah.
This is one of the arguments that we had.
Right.
And just like you said, if the in-district expense, if you do not itemize and write down your expenses, then it is taxed as taxable income.
Yep, correct.
So you'll be taxed the same way as income is.
Yep.
But you do have the ability to keep up with your mileage going back and forth for whatever you spend it for in district. Every time that you give a Boy Scout a flag, every time that you're paying $85 to get a resolution made, you have the ability to keep up with that.
Yeah.
And claim that
ribbon
as
cuttings,
your,
Chamber of Commerce, Like we have an economic development here, annual meetings, like all those things where you travel back
You
and
want
forth.
you want to sponsor a small local nonprofit table.
Yeah.
You know, you have the ability to write that stuff off.
You want to sponsor a Miracle League
Yeah.
softball team or baseball team. Yeah.
And so I didn't look at it as pay increase to begin with. I firmly believe in what you said, what Representative Joe White said, what Wes Clymer said, in that I believe that it is not right, should we ever vote for a pay increase for ourselves.
Right.
So, and going into the vote, keep in mind, I should be a no. I've already said I'm going to be a no. This is an easy vote. But what started bothering me was...
The politics of it. You started getting people up there grandstanding about it?
Yeah.
I know.
And that's the problem, is it becomes a narrative that, oh, we're just voting for a pay increase for ourselves, whereas I might be able to provide at some point some text messages from people of other parties that brag that they get to vote against it, but we can't wait to get this pay increase.
But then they take it.
Yeah. So, and so the speaker gave us an out.
I did like this.
That if you don't want to take the in-district expenses, you can opt out. Because the one thing that we did not do, we did not fund this.
Well,
We wrote it as an increase, but put no money behind it to increase the House budget.
yeah.
So it is not
That can survive for a year or two.
right.
Yeah.
But we did not fund it. We did not add additional money to give it, even though it's $3 million.
There
We
were
didn't
some
add it
existing
in there.
monies of
Right.
unspent funds that have been sitting in the operational account that can supply.
Float it.
Yep. For at least a year or two.
Yeah.
Yep.
But so we did not fund it to begin with. And I was like, okay, well, it's not like we took the budget and said we need $3 million more to increase our pay.
Yeah.
That never happened. Then we go, and as we are getting up there to vote, I started thinking about it. Like, if you would have told me 5 years ago, before I ever got in office, that you're going to have a budget with no appropriations, that cuts taxes, that lowers the amount of money that we spend on full-time employees, increases teacher pay, funds school resource officers in every school district, would you vote for it?
Yeah, right.
I think everyone would say yes. Well, then, okay, so the problem I have is this $3 million that's in the budget. Now, if let's say it was going back to earmarks. Let's say Gilda Cobb Hunter had $3 million for, something I completely disagree with.
Yeah.
Gay gummy bear art statue for $3 million.
There you go.
Do I vote against the entire budget?
The old go-to.
Yeah. Do I vote against the entire budget based on this one thing that's less than 10%
Yeah.
of the entire budget that I disagreed with?
Again, all valid.
And that's what I started looking at it like. Now, I completely understand you. I completely understand Wes, because I was, up until the grandstanding happened, I was with you.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's not with me.
No, I agreed. I just agreed 100% with what you were saying.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it was like, okay, I feel like that is what the Freedom Caucus does.
And that's what
They take one small issue, and it doesn't matter. If you would have asked a Freedom Caucus member before they got elected this year, if you could get no earmarks in the budget, if everyone's earmarks are cut out of the budget, would you vote for it? I bet you all of them would have said yeah. And then we do it, and the problem is you will see there are groups of people, regardless of what happens, they always take the easy way out. They always hit no, and I'm not talking about you, but I'm talking about the Freedom Caucus in their vote. They will hit no regardless. So every time they put up a request for something, no one's listening because they're going to be no anyway.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point? This isn't part of a negotiation.
That's some of the, I would say, the shady part of, in my opinion, this is just my opinion.
Yeah.
For me, I voted no because it was a process for me. This was not a caucus agenda item. And I wanted to do it in a way, and again, I would agree, the hard way, because it's perilous, because like you said, if we go out, stick our necks out, do all this and get it through a bill, run it through committee, it takes one senator to just put their finger on it, right? And that's true. But it still doesn't weaken my determination to say we still need to do it the right way. And let's go hard in the paint, bang some heads, and get it done.
Well, let's push my bill through.
Right. Or Taylor's
Taylor's
or whoever.
bill, yeah.
So I'll join you in that effort. I still want to do that because
now I'm not taking the pay increase. I'm actually going to donate it back to some of the nonprofits.
Yeah, I opted out too.
I didn't opt out.
No, I know.
I'm still taking the money because we have no appropriations, but giving it to nonprofits that I support.
Here and again, I think that's like my guilty conscience thing as far as like if I'm taking it. And me and Representative Gil Gatch out of Somerville, my man, him and I talked about it in caucus, and him and I talked afterwards. The difference in, because we all say no budget's ever perfect.
Yeah.
Right? If we wanted to, we could go in and pick out here and there that would, I disagree with that. I don't.
Now, neither one of us are on Ways and Means.
No.
And even if you are, you're only going to focus on your committee within Ways and Means.
A lot, yeah. And so my point is no budget's ever going to be perfect, but there's always things that you could probably hold your nose. But
this is one you felt cross the line.
There's 124 folks to consider, right, when it comes to a budget. And so that budget represents a collective effort of will and political capital to try to get your priorities across the finish line.
It's a negotiation.
That's best for the state. Yep. And so that consensus is what the budget is. And so there's always that imperfect in it. This one is what I felt was the difference for me was never was there something that I disagreed with, but it also personal benefited me, right? And again, you and I both agree.
I mean, I even asked you, I was like, can I not recuse myself? Wouldn't this be a situation, like if you're voting something to supposedly benefit yourself?
Right. Isn't this potential conflict?
You're right. And I think Wes kind of looked at it the same way, which he's talked about he's going to sue.
Right.
Because he believes it's unconstitutional.
Yeah. Well, and again, that goes back to the process. And so again, I'm fine with, I'm glad the budget at least passed because, 90% of it is all stuff that you and I are down with.
Yeah.
We would brag on, right? And so.
But that's the difference. And this is the way Republicans who disagree on something or on the opposite sides should handle things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nothing personal.
I could go to social media and blast Heath and say, oh, he didn't want to fund bridges. He didn't want to fund teachers. He said he goes to church with a lot of teachers. No, I didn't do that. And he didn't go on social media and say, Guffey wants to pad his pockets.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Right.
But look what the caucus did. Look what the Freedom Party did. And look what the Republican caucus did. And tell me who's hitting who and who's doing what. Yeah. And that's the funniest thing about it.
And again, folks, I'll say this for like the 118th time. I don't care what you want to do. I don't care what you'd like to do. Do it. That's the difference. You got folks in that chamber who will go on social media and tell you all the stuff they want to do. They're telling you basically they can't do it.
For the rednecks listening, don't talk about it, be about it.
Or F-A-F-O. And it's literally, guys, look, I might have priorities. Well, guess what? Then I got to go to work.
Yeah.
I don't, just posting on social media ain't going to do a damn thing for my district. Nothing.
And that was the whole point of why didn't you present this to Ways and Means?
Yeah, or this state. Look, you and I have priorities. We might set a goal. We might not even talk about it until it gets a hearing because we've got now a bill and we feel good about it to get a hearing. And now we start the ball rolling. And then we start putting in a lot of hard work to get it across the finish line and pass out of the House, right? And then guess what? You're halfway home.
Yeah.
Now you got to go work it in the Senate and you got to find partners over there. And again, all of that is a lot of work. And there are members unserious who aren't about that. They want to go to social media and do their keyboard warrior stuff. That's it.
Well, I'll tell you, I decided this year, even after me and Joe White had our falling out, went up to him and was like, hey, let's work on this together. And working on a bill. And was trying to show him how we could work to get things passed. and the bill wasn't really moving or anything else.
Yeah.
Well, then all of a sudden, the group that was asking us to help them with it emailed us and was like, hey, we're asking y'all to kill this bill. There's some problems in it.
Oh, because then they educated y'all
Right.
on, yeah.
So it felt bad, but I'm really looking forward to the day that I can work directly with a Freedom Caucus member, getting a bill across the line and showing like there's more than one way than standing on your soapbox or your stump and just shouting and banging your chest like King Kong to get a bill done.
Well, and again, I'm not indicting all members of the Freedom Party,
No.
right? But it is more prevalent over there. And, I guess they're in the minority because there's like 13, 14 of them. I don't know if RJ's a member still. All that secret.
Why not? Didn't April say he's an upstanding member?
And speaking of, that's one thing that we got to talk to Jordan about is how can you claim to be transparent or a fan of transparency and you won't even publish your members?
Right.
Like, how opaque is that? But anyway, I digress. I have several Freedom Party members in 3M. And that DHEC cleanup bill, I tried to talk to them about, look, let's have a standalone bill on emergency powers. Let's
did you
clarify
text
that.
their DC guy that's telling them what to do in their signal chat?
No. I talked to them about vaccine schedules. Guys, I have a concern.
You got to go above their head.
You
got to go to the State Freedom Caucus Network.
Got to go to the boss.
You got to start going all the way to the DC
Man, I don't know.
and tell
But again,
whoever's going to tell them.
And I know y'all probably just listening and not seeing Guffey smirking over here. He's cutting jokes. But in all sincerity, we talk about Joe White. Let's talk about Joe White for a second. Joe, I irritated Joe. You and I both irritated Joe, freshman, when we had the what we call the RJ Bay bill. And he didn't talk to me after that, right? He felt like I was singling out a friend of his or whatever, a mentor, I don't know. And, we didn't talk. But I will say, a little time, a little more life experience. Joe and I talk. We're respectful. We're courteous. We try to work together on some things. He brought up some good stuff on a couple of bill ideas and bills in committee. And I share some of those concerns. Now, I have said to some members of the Freedom Party who are on 3M with me, I'm like, hey, guys, let's get together. But at no point have they come and said, hey, can we get a work session? Can we meet in your office? Can we meet in our office? Whatever. To address some of these issues, right? Because, again, I think sometimes they want to prey on the fear of what happened in COVID in dealing with public health and the health czar and all that stuff that we dealt with on our freshman term.
Which rightfully so.
And again, I don't like trying to scare the crap out of people to obtain an objective. I would like to have good faith, honest debate, have it up in committee, subcommittee, and all those things, and let's make the best bill possible and get it to the floor.
Right.
So look forward to doing that. We've got some stuff coming up next year that I'll try to work with them on, and we'll see what we can do. But altogether, good budget. It was that wart that we talked about, that sort of
the hair on the steak.
Yep, that you and I just,
or as I said, ugly baby quoting Daniel.
But yeah, man. All in all, besides the pay raise, in district expense, it was a great budget. So we'll see. Go back at it. In the next segment, we'll talk about that.
I didn't have a problem with like you voting no on the budget, me voting yes on the budget, because you explained it very well. The problem that I had is the people that wanted to talk so much trash about the budget that got nothing done in the budget.
Right.
And then are in secret saying, oh, I can't wait to get this pay raise. And then trying to paint it as all these people are getting this pay raise.
So let's commit. Pints and politics. All right. When this thing goes into effect, we will publish a list of folks who have either opted out, like I have, or have committed to donating that increase to worthy nonprofits.
Right.
So,
and like Joe said, well, there's no proof of it. Well, I named out the nonprofits I'm going to be donating to publicly.
Yep.
So,
and again, we will we are only going to publish what we can confirm, right? We're not going to speculate. We're not going to, someone just says they donated to 4-H. If we can't confirm it,
See, I think appropriations, in-district funding, all of that, if you didn't vote for it, then I don't think you should be able to get it to begin with.
Yeah, so there's a few of us that have committed. I know Blake Sanders. I know Don Chapman.
Yeah.
Have already committed to donation.
David Bone.
Yep, there's
I mean, you just named a bunch of rich people. I hadn't heard any.
Yep. I just opted out, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to stand firm. Look, I don't think this is the right way to do it, and because of that, I'm going to hold true to that vote, and let's work together January and try to get something
I looked
going.
at it more like whenever I was on county council,
Yeah.
you had your discretionary funds.
Hey, man, here's
So you get
another
what you want.
idea that somebody came up with. So we are a large delegation. What do we got, 12, 13 of us in our York County delegation, including Senate Finance Chair, Harvey Peeler? We do not have an admin person that helps us with constituent services. Like if we have a
That's our own conservative fault, though.
Right. If we have I'm just for the two listeners. If we have a constituent in House District 46, which is my district, Rock Hill, and says, "Hey, I got a problem. I've got a jammed up culvert underneath my driveway. Who do I call?" Our constituents don't have a number like that, so they can call. They got to figure it out for themselves, right?
Yep.
And most other delegations that have 5, 6, or plus members have someone that
Locally, that can sit there and do that.
that answers those kind of phone calls and just basically is a customer service person, a constituent service person that can help direct our voters and our citizens to the right local government office, state government office, whatever the problem is. If it's a passport, you need to call Ralph Norman's office because he's our, you know what I mean?
Let me get you that
Just
number.
a little bit of government help for our constituents. Someone brought up the fact that, man, with this in-district money, I can pay
Help
a part-time person
to help me. Yeah.
just to help with delivering better constituent service. And I was like, damn,
Pretty good idea.
That's a good.
I still wouldn't want to do it in the first year.
That's that's another good idea. And I started thinking to myself, man, just imagine if our delegation out of that in-district money, everyone throws in $500 a month. That is
We could have a full-time person.
that's a good little budget for
Yeah.
again to deliver government efficiencies to our citizens. So again, a pay raise, I think, is warranted. I would just want to do it in a way like what we've talked about in legislation and to where future assemblies don't have to get this political blowback of you gave yourself a 500% raise. You know what I mean? So
Agreed.
So anyway, next up, we're talking about roads.
I even got the hat on today, too. So
I tell
this
you.
works perfect.
Our lead-in music today has been spot on.
Pretty good.
On. So yeah, we just wanted to tease this this recent assignment that we've gotten.
I'm excited about it.
Me too, man. So we both got selected to be on this DOT ad hoc committee led by Chair Lady Erickson. She is out of Beaufort, and Chair Lady Heather Crawford out of Myrtle Beach. Two growing areas of our state. And, Erickson is chair of, she gets a lot of, I guess, acclaim for her work on
Education.
chair of education. But there's another, the full name of that is Education and Public Works. So the idea from leadership is let's take Public Works chair in Shannon Erickson, and let's take subcommittee for transportation on Ways and Means, which is Heather Crawford. So the money on how we spend money.
And then they said, no more women on the committee.
Right. So good news is York County is represented well.
Yeah. You, me, and David Martin.
Yeah. Yep. And then we got Lawson right next door in Cherokee and Spartanburg County. We've got there's one more contract. I was going to say, am I the only contractor? I know
Gary Brewer.
No, he's a consultant.
Yeah.
He's a consultant. That is different. Just because he wears boots and jeans does not make him a contractor. He is Gary Brewer is a consultant. He can talk about it. I don't know if he can be about it. No, just
a little slap at it, right?
But no, so yeah, we got the low country in there. We've got, all geographies of our state considered.
What I
and
loved is
represented.
the speaker said, look, nothing's off limits.
Yeah. Yep. Modernizing our systems, taking into account how do we address EV.
Yeah.
And
Making sure they're paying their fair share whenever they're tearing up the roads just as bad.
And it's a heavier vehicle.
Yeah.
Right. So, and what I enjoyed was also talking about we are creating a vision for 2050 and beyond, right? We're looking at what are the trends in our economies, in our markets, and in our state, and how do we best plan for that future?
Right.
Because
And being the fastest growing state.
right
as well.
because it's all too often, especially in government, you're behind the eight ball and you're just playing to catch up.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed the speaker telling us and challenging us, guys, we need a vision for 2050, right? This new economy with EVs, charging stations, those types of things needs to be in the consideration. So, and that's more of a funding mechanism.
And the growth, the congestion,
yeah.
So,
Man, spending Memorial Day weekend down in the low country, whew, boy,
more power to you.
man,
It's like going to Fort Mill and TKK.
I tell you, man, it is something else. If you're trying to get off Johns Island or 3 o'clock on, you better give yourself an hour.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Growing up down there, what used to be a 15, 20-minute ride is a solid 45. Now,
Wow.
rush hour, forget about it.
Now, also, this committee is going to be a working committee.
And I enjoy
And
the road
traveling.
show. Yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
So, everyone is going to be required to show up to these meetings. We're going to be working. We're going to be doing on-site visits. We're going to be having these discussions. And the chair lady's agenda was to have this worked out by the end of the year. So, it's going to be a rough off season.
Exciting.
I don't know about you. I'm a little busy at the moment, but normally I wouldn't mind. But yeah, it's going to be a busy 6 months.
Yeah, no, but we got a great group, don't
Yes.
we? I mean, we have a great group from all around the state. A lot of our freshman class is in there.
Yes.
We've already started a new thread, DOT crew. That'll be
I
fun.
mute all group messages. I can't tell.
But yeah, looking forward to that work and seeing what we can accomplish, because with the goal being by the time this year wraps up, we're going to have some concrete goals and recommendations for the body to consider on the floor of the House next year.
Yeah.
So,
And thank you all for
Definitely
sticking
looking
with us. No,
Yeah.
it's been a couple weeks.
yeah.
And I'm sure throughout the summer we're going to try to keep the recordings going, but we also got to have content as well. And
Yeah.
maybe we can bring on some guests. And
I think
we're going to
it's-
have governor's race heating up, I'm sure. So we're going to have...
Where are you at on that?
I think it would be awesome for us to bring everyone that announces that they want to run for governor onto the podcast.
I think
it'd be a
that's-
good platform for them.
Yeah. I think that's in the works. I think
Well, I would say every Republican. I don't know. I want to make sure everybody thinks that it's friendly.
Yeah. I don't even know who's run on the Dem side. Do they even know?
Well, I think there's been one or two this.
I heard there was a
Maybe
doctor.
that's just against Lindsey Graham.
I heard there was a doctor out of the Low Country who lost to Mace last time, is running against challenging Senator Graham. So we'll
And
see what happens.
Once again, thank you to Comer Distributing,
Yeah.
the Sweetwater Brewing Company.
Go check it out.
Highlight Easy IPA.
Yeah.
It was great.
It's a lighter version of, if you like mountain candy, I'd say go check this one out. Sweetwater Brewing Company, Highlight, Easy IPA, sort of a lime green can.
Got a trout on it.
Good light beer.
Yep.
So thanks again for tuning in. We will see you next time.
Thank you much.